welcome to SVG-TV's news for Wednesday, June 2nd, 2021. I'm Triska Campbell with the details. The government is looking to improve the database of the National Emergency Management Organization, NEMO, to better coordinate the distribution of relief supplies to persons in need. Speaking on radio this morning, Acting Prime Minister Montgomery Daniel noted that there are many relief support being provided to from organizations that are working in collaborations with the government, and that with an improved database, NEMO would be in a better position to know who is getting assistance double the time.
That NEMO work well with Bernard, who is at Red Cross, and to try and coordinate along with social development to establish a database where within that database you can have the beneficiaries well identified so that such beneficiaries will not be double dipping, because you may probably be getting from Red Cross or from social development and the different state agencies and so on, so that the database has to be well established.
Prime Minister Dr. Alf Gonsalves, who called in on the program from Cuba, spoke on the issue and said it is possible that some of the persons getting supplies twice are for good reasons.
But one of the things I want to urge very strongly, and it's easy to coordinate that, and we must make perfection the enemy of the good. That while we try, generally speaking, that persons must not get two sets of things. The truth of the matter is this: you're going to have some cases of that happening.
Yes.
And we mustn't spend our time. Like if we are distributing 4,000 parcels of food, but even 10% of them, which is 400, on an initial rollout, a double dip, quote unquote. We must not allow the system to be paralyzed because of that.
As SVG enters the hurricane season, the weather pattern is also being closely monitored by the team of scientists monitoring the Lassifere volcano from the Belmont Observatory in Rose Hall. During the last 24 hours, there were some showers and mud flows were expected, but according to lead monitoring scientist, volcanologist Dr. Adam Stinton, there was none.
There's also continued degassing from the summit crater. We've had some rain overnight on the volcano, but it doesn't look like there were any mud flows generated in any of the valleys that I'm aware of. So things are continuing as they have done for the last 5 or 6 weeks now. And if we start to see an increase in seismic events, if we start to see an increase in tilt, then we will be able to provide you with this information and advise you accordingly. So our plans are underway.
The alert level of the volcano remains at orange. And the Central Water and Sewage Authority, CWSA, is urging residents to activate their water storage plans and to have more water storage capacity in their household for at least 2 to 4 days now that we are in the hurricane season. At a news conference today, Chief Executive Officer of CWSA, Garth Sanders, said with the challenges brought on by the explosive eruption of Lassifere volcano, there is a possibility that the hurricane season can result in disruptions to water supply.
Second day of the Atlantic hurricane season. This year, we have a projection of an above average activity during the hurricane season. So we hope that all listeners are aware of this. And I just want to remind listeners as well that during a normal hurricane season, the expectation is that at some point we're going to get high winds and we're going to get heavy rainfall that will eventually cause flooding land slippage, and blockages to rivers, including our intakes, and very often it can dislodge some of our pipelines. So it means that in every community in St. Vincent, we need the population to be alerted to the fact that you can lose your water supply system in the aftermath of a heavy rainfall event. We are not capable yet of knowing which system will be lost, so we require all citizens to be in a state of readiness, a state of preparedness in terms of your water supply.
Sanders said each home should have at least 15 gallons of water stored for each person living in the household.
So we ask that you try as far as possible to have storage from 2 to 4 days, storage capacity in your homes for 2 to 4 days. And this is so because we have to give the CWSA's staff time to do damage assessment, to plan a response, and to actually carry out reconstruction where and when necessary. So the 2 to 4 days is what we require, and we normally at CWSA, we normally give the advice that you should have planned for 15 gallons per person per day in your homes. So when you're designing your storage systems or when you're catching up water, try as far as possible to meet that target figure of 15 gallons per person per day. It can be more, but we understand that there may be challenges.
The CWSA CEO said that this weekend he anticipates rainfalls and encourage persons to consistently follow the weather report and prepare for rain from this weekend.
I want to ask all listeners to continue to focus on the weather reports, and to plan for rainfall this weekend and indeed throughout the rest of the hurricane season. Listen to your daily weather reports, keep in touch with updates from NEMO and our Met Office, and also the CWSA's Facebook page, because we are always trying to keep ahead of the weather in our planning and in order to plan our response. Activate your home water storage plans. Keep water stored in receptacles that can be kept secure and covered. And you can be assured that CWS, as usual, will do its best to minimize inconveniences during these periods. We will work, as we normally do, assiduously, to try to restore the system in the shortest possible time.
Meanwhile, senior engineer of CWSA Bernard Maloney said that all tests done on their water supply show that even after the explosive eruption of the La Soufrière volcano, the water remains at the highest international standard.
Immediate aftermath, we partnered with the Soils Lab at the Ministry of Agriculture. Ash is very similar to soils and rocks. So we partnered with them along with our water quality expertise. We worked together and we did some initial screening using different physical parameters, and we did our testing here before we could reinstate our systems. We ensured that all of our tests met and far surpassed the standards of the World Health Organization and also the United States Environmental Protection Agency. After this, we worked with the Caribbean Water and Wastewater Association. We sent our samples over to Trinidad, where the Ecotox laboratories did other screening, and those results confirmed what we already knew.
Maloney noted that after the eruption, only the physical attributes of the water they supply changed.
Attributes that would have changed, for instance, the turbidity and so on. However, we would have allowed enough time for the water to settle by plain sedimentation. The ash doesn't remain in suspension for too long. So whenever we treat our water, it is of the highest standard and the highest quality. PAHO would have highlighted, based on research in New Zealand and other countries, that there would have been the possibility of arsenic poisoning. They provided us with rapid testing arsenic kits. We did a host of tests, and we never detected any trace of arsenic in our water. Other heavy metal testing showed that the water is of substantially good quality. We also partnered with PAHO and had our samples sent to the Public Health Department over in Martinique, and they then forwarded the samples to France, to a very highly accredited laboratory in France. And again, they confirmed, they scanned for quite a few parameters, over 31 parameters, and again they confirmed that our water is of the highest standard. And
the engineer further outlined some of the substances and metals that were screened in the water systems before they were given the all-clear to be used.
Of metals, we will test for aluminum, arsenic, barium, cadmium, calcium, and the more threatening ones would be, for instance, lead and mercury, which are of known poisons. And again, and for instance, zinc. So literally from A to Z in terms of the metal testing. We do inorganic and physical factors. They include nitrate, nitrite, which perhaps can be from agrochemicals, and again, no trace. The disinfection byproducts, essentially the main groupings are haloacetic acids and trihalomethanes. So apart from these, the organic chemicals, the pesticides, herbicides, things like atrazine, 2,4-D, and other stuff that we use here in our industry. So as I said, we did a very comprehensive screening, 117 parameters, and we met and surpassed by far, these international standards.
As farmers begin the tedious process of returning to full-scale production in the aftermath of the eruption of the Lucifer volcano, Minister of Agriculture Saboto Caesar said lahars pose a great threat to the farms in the red zone. For this reason, Minister Caesar said rebuilding efforts are being concentrated outside of these heavily impacted areas.
So there are certain areas in the red zone that we have identified would be affected by the lahars. We have a lot of ash and debris on the mountain slopes. Simply, when it rains, it is brought down to the valleys and in the lower areas. Therefore, you may have a farmer who, even though there was a heavy ash fall in that area, the farmer was marginally affected. But the lahars, so far, definitely causing greater devastation. What we want to ensure is that when we rebuild in areas that are earmarked and zoned outside of these areas that typically we anticipate will be affected by the lahars.
Farming efforts will therefore be focused in the green to orange zones. Some farmers in the red zone may also be able to redevelop there as well.
A lot of effort in rebuilding in the green, yellow, and some areas in the orange zones first. Of course, there are excellent farmers still in the red zone, and we'll be working with these farmers because it's not every area in the red zone that will be affected by the lahars.
Meanwhile, the minister also took the time to encourage persons with unused lands to register them with the government's land bank initiative, which is being used to provide a matching service to farmers who may be in need of lands for farming in the future.
From a government standpoint, we have a land bank initiative where we have identified lands in different areas. And when it gets to that stage where persons are in need of lands for farming, we have a matchmaking exercise. So I'm using this opportunity to appeal to persons who have lands that are lying idle to come to the Ministry of Agriculture and bring the deed or the lease that you have and place that information in the land bank.
While no leasing of lands is underway just yet, the Agriculture Minister encouraged persons to register to ensure the information is on hand when the opportunity to utilize it arises.
Persons who are in need of lands, they can, when they come forward, we can create a match. The government is not at this point leasing the lands, but we want to have the information available. So if you decide that you want to farm, you could come to the ministry and we can show you where lands are and what types of commodities may best grow in those areas.
Minister Caesar also commended farmers who have integrated themselves into their foster communities and have begun farming in these areas.
From a private sector standpoint, I am aware that there are some farmers from the red zone who are staying in shelters in different areas, and they have already entered into different relationships with persons from those areas and are already working lands in those areas. And I really want to commend these farmers and the other stakeholders working with them to ensure that persons remain productive.
Road cleaners in the orange zone were out this week cleaning the drains and road as part of the government's roadwork program through the Building Roads and General Services Authority, BRAGSA. On the leeward side of the island in the vicinity of Belle Isle, our news team spoke with some of the cleaners who said that this time around it is even more difficult to clean due to heavy ash. The road cleaners say they deserve to be paid more money for their hard work.
I am the gang leader. You can see the men them walking so hard, the place is so bad, especially the ash in the gutter and the drain and the water coming down. It's very difficult for them to clean. It's very difficult. It's very difficult because sometimes it is no worse than this. This is 3 days, it's 7 days.
Yes, it was. Was. Never thought ashes, when the ashes didn't get it, so we have to clean.
I intend to clean, taking hard, it's taking a time, and you have to cost money for work. You have to bring people who cost expensive, really expensive and hard.
Look at my eyes. The ash them get in my eye when I come here Thursday. This morning again, and it's really difficult for me with my eye, with the ash. The money what I get in, I cannot go to doctor with this money here and eat food.
The cleaners, however, noted that they are grateful for the work which they believe should be done more often.
The road getting bad when time to work, I tell you that. They leave in the road too long for work.
Very important to the volcano suffering, and if we don't volunteer to clean this place, it will be a lot of flooding, and we don't want the flooding. So that's why we are here, and we all appreciate this work. And we got sweet please.
Very hard to see hurricane month coming up. And we have to get it drink clean. Otherwise trouble going by black up.
We walking real hard when we're on the road now. Real hard we walking. Some of the vehicles them in the past, even though they're in the middle of the road pushing the stuff, they don't even ease up. Sometimes we have to leave the stuff in the road and pass the road and let it pass. You know, if they ease up, when they see this, some they ease up and some, especially if they're in a hustle.
2 women have come forward to make allegations of police brutality or misconduct during an incident which took place last Friday, May 28, at their home in Glen. The sisters Shemron Haynes and Ashika Anthony have sought the service of legal counsel K. Bacchus Batiste to represent them in the matter. The women relayed their story to the media yesterday in the presence of their lawyer. According to Shemron Haynes, the incident unfolded just after 12 noon last Friday when she saw from her window police officers in her yard, that of mother and their neighbor. She said questions as to why the officers were there went unanswered, and soon after things escalated.
And nobody answered her. So she turned to me and said, I'm going to turn to the officer, I'm going to call my mother to inform she that the police is here in case you all have a search warrant in order for Ali to proceed with all the investigation, whatever. So the officer told her she can't use her phone, right? She take the phone, he tried taking the phone from her. She says, this is my rights. I could use my phone. The officer then again tried to take the phone from her. She take the phone and push it under her bottom like this. And the officer then comes up on the porch, lift her and slam her on the ground and take the phone from her. After this, she said, Shamoni, see what's happening? So I was like, yes, Ashika, I see. And then she was going to come down the steps when he go and he grabbed her by the throat and started slapping her and then boxing her in her face.
Haynes added that she also received 2 slaps from one of the officers, noting that all of this happened in front of her children.
An ex-police officer then approached her from inside the house, coming from inside the house, who did not see this incident happen, and start choking her again and punching her in her face and turning to her and saying like this, "You hit my officer, you hit my officer, you hit my officer, we fed up for you, we fed up for you. Every time we come here, you always have something to say." And continue punching her. So I'm telling her, "Officer, she did not do anything, she did not do anything," with my hand like this. And he was like, "You get your hand out of my face, you get your hand out of my face." I'm surprised because my hand is not in his face. I'm like, "This officer, she did not do anything." So I turned to my 15-year-old, because these are kids that is on the porch, a 8-year-old, a 11-year-old, a 13-year-old, and a 15-year-old, seeing all this going on. So I turned to my daughter to tell her something, and I received a slap from the officer. So I turned and I said, "What? Officer, what did I do?" And I received a next slap again from the same officer in front of my kids. My daughter she was scared, so she ran to meet me. And the officer put a gun at her and said, "Hey, you stay right there." With all this going on, even when the officer was beating her, the officer came out and I was beating her, the other officer that was hitting her before have a broomstick and beating her in her head, while the next officer choking her, boxing her in her face in front of the kids.
Haynes' sister, Ashika Antoine, who was allegedly brutalized by the police, is said to be asthmatic. After the incident, she was taken to the Kalekwa clinic and told members of the media yesterday that she thought she was going to die during the ordeal.
I sleep with my asthma pump right beside my bed, because sometimes in the middle of the night I will get up and can't breathe. So one of the officers was turning upside, told him to hand my pump for me because my chest was feeling extra tight and the walls felt like they were closing in on me. He took the table and he just flipped it over. He didn't hand the pump for me, he didn't care. I dropped on the ground, I felt like I was going to die. My heart was beating so fast and I couldn't breathe at all. He didn't really care. The clinic, the nurse was saying that if they brought me in any later, could have gotten brain damage, or even worse, could have died because I was wheezing so bad on both sides of my chest.
The woman also claimed that their home was ransacked and no warrant was produced. They say the police subsequently told them that they were searching for guns and ammunition and were looking for a man who is known to them. Meanwhile, lawyer K. Bacchus Batiste has expressed concern with the growing complaints of police brutality in SVG. At yesterday's news conference, Bacchus Batiste noted that in the past week alone, she received 3 complaints of police brutality. One of them allegedly occurred on Friday, as reported by the 2 sisters from Glen. Bacchus Batiste said this sort of behavior from the police are unacceptable and that she will be pursuing to ensure justice for the victims. She said certain requests will be made, and if the police fail to comply, she will take further legal action.
I'm going to write the Commissioner of Police, and I need to find out all the 20 policemen who were there. I am going to ask for full disclosure of all the policemen, including those that are national and non-nationals, and who was in charge of the pack. I need him to confirm that no search warrant was issued, because that is what my clients told me. They have no search warrant, so I need him to confirm that.
We talked to the commissioner as well too that day.
Right. And then I'm going to copy it to the Attorney General, because I'm going to ask for compensation based on the medical records that I have here. If they don't compensate me, I'm definitely going to take action against the state. We're going to sue the state and those policemen. This thing has to stop.
The veteran lawyer noted that she has won cases before against police brutality as complainants were compensated, and that she intends to do the same in this matter.
Really, the clients are impecunious, and it's an issue of the money to go all the way, because these procedures are expensive. You have to give notice of intention to sue and all. It takes a long time, but I have had clients being compensated before, and generally I try to assist. I do a lot of pro bono work, but there still has to be some sort of payment involved. But I have, as I said, gotten compensation for police brutality on more than one occasion. Yeah, but with this one, I really intend to go all the way with it, because it really, when you have policemen beating up on women, men lifting her up and throwing her down and slapping a woman and boxing a woman, this one I'm going to have to do pro bono.
Our news team attempted to get in touch with Commissioner of Police via telephone for a comment on the allegations against the officers involved in the matter, but up to news time, he has not returned our call. In other news, the traffic department of the Royal St. Vincent and the Grenadines Police Force, while commending citizens who have been complying with the COVID-19 protocols implemented by the government to combat and contain the spread of the coronavirus, said it has noted with concern those who chose not to adhere to these protocols. In light of this, the department, in a news release today, reminded the public that the protocols as stipulated by the Ministry of Health, Wellness and the Environment are still in effect, and encourages all citizens, including omnibus drivers, conductors and passengers, to adhere to the protocols to reduce the spread of the coronavirus. The department said officers will be strategically placed on the public roads to ensure that these guidelines are adhered to, and that the failure to comply with these protocols would result in persons being prosecuted by the law. The technical and vocational industry in St. Vincent and the Grenadines will be getting another boost with the training of Cohort 4 under the Youth and Adult Training Employment YATE program. Tomorrow, Thursday, June 3rd, the new trainees will go through orientation session, which follows an opening ceremony at the Kingston Baptist Church starting at 9 a.m. According to the Education Media Unit, due to the volcanic eruptions, training will only be held at the Camlin Park and the Kingston Technical Institute, or TIS, rather than the usual 4 TIS, as well as the approved private institutions after the orientation. The trainees are expected to go through 1 week of life skills coaching that will take place between the 7th and 14th of June. Technical training at the Technical Institutes commences on Monday, 21st of June, and the private training providers on Monday, 28th of June. YATE's objective is to train unemployed and the vulnerable population between the ages of 17 and 45 in various vocational areas for the Caribbean Certificate Qualification (CVQs). Since its inception, YATE has trained over 400 persons and certified over 200 youths and adults in areas such as electrical installation, welding, amenity horticulture, garment construction, commercial food preparation, as well as cosmetology. YATE is facilitated under the Ministry of Finance, Economic Planning, in collaboration with the Ministry of Education and National Reconciliation.